Yo, what's going on, guys? It is
Hello,
Script Pull Up
hello.
here with Dr. Bojo,
Welcome,
and
welcome.
we are here to cast this wonderful matchup in the SDL between the Imaginary Bishops and Feeding Frenzy.
It's going to be a good one, Skur. A little bit of info for you here. Imaginary Bishops are yet to win a single game here in the SDL. We also have Joker playing in the jungle here for them, and he's a new addition. This is his first set, and he was picked up yesterday, so I would like to keep my eyes on him.
Yeah, I mean, you always like to see new players coming into the scene, and yeah, hopefully we're going to see a good one here between these two teams as we head right into these picks and bans here. And we got a low-key ban here, Bojo.
Yeah, Loki's very strong in the jungle, especially with maces being as they are. Invisibility is a very difficult thing to counter if you're not really prepared for it. It's just a very solid jungler right now. He's actually pretty safe with the ultimate. He gets out very easily, so it makes sense to ban it away, especially if Feeding Frenzy knows that the imaginary bishops have a Loki player, which maybe is Joker.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, it seems like the Bishops here were planning a specific god with their draft, and it looks like they got him here with Geb.
Yeah, Geb is just awesome. I love Rockman, and I know you love Rockman.
I
Just
do.
the Geb shields are super sick. The base damage on the ultimate is now super powerful. Gotta be like top 2 contested supports right now in the whole game. Really a really great pick here, and that might come back to bite them as they did ban the Loki as you mentioned, which maybe isn't the most meta, which does give away the Geb, but at least
Look
they got
into
Uller
my
now, so that's pretty
eyes.
powerful as well.
Yeah, and it seems like they're going to trade. You talked about the top two most selected supports. One of them, maybe on the brink of that, is Athena. And she's been selected here by Feeding Frenzy, picking
Mm-hmm.
that up there, as well as the Uller, which is a hotly contested pick.
Yeah, Uller just with maces is always going to be good. I mean, he was borderline pickable before, and now with maces being in the meta, he just does so much damage in lane. He provides a lot of pressure, and that is actually one of the weaknesses of Geb in the support lane and in the dual lane is he doesn't really bring much pressure. So as Uller, when you hit that level 2, you can always jump in, you can get a lot of damage off, you can win lane pressure, and maybe you transition that into looking for purple buffs.
Yeah, for sure. The pressure is always something nice to see. And I mean, we got two picks after, the meta pickup. We got two picks, not necessarily the most well received picks in the world, Medusa and Sun Wukong. What do you think about this two?
I think both of them are kind of, I would say, hovering around like B tier, sort of. Like they're not, the top characters of the meta, but they're not the worst. We saw a lot of Wukong earlier this season, but he's kind of fallen off a little bit and given way to more of the Cthulhu and the Nike and picks like that. Wukong does a lot of more single target damage compared to those. He doesn't quite create as much space, but he does a lot more burst damage in a short amount of time. And again, Comfort is king in RSL, and Medusa is no different. Medusa with Geb it's a pretty low pressure lane, and into an Uller and an Athena, I expect the imaginary bishops to get pushed back here fairly heavily. And now we see a Chalk even, and Chalk does the same thing. He has a lot of pressure in the lane. He is just a lane bully. He transitions pretty well into the late game, but once you get to that 30-minute mark, that's where the Chalk can start to fall off.
Yeah, I would say definitely that's about when it starts to fall off, and we're just wrapping up the first phase of picks here into the second ban phase, and it seems like both teams have actually selected their ADC, solo, and support. So we're gonna have some matching bans here, Bojo.
Yeah, that is very interesting. Leaving mid and jungle for the last pick is a little strange, and it's funny that it happens for both rosters. That's not something that's super common here. Yeah, it's an interesting draft so far. So far, I have to say, Feeding Frenzy, I think definitely have the pressure advantage. But Imaginary Bishops maybe have a better late game. I mean, that's what you're picking the Geb for, and hopefully they're okay with sacrificing that duo pressure because I expect it to get run down.
You know, we say this a lot as a meme between us, but I'd really like to see an Agni pick here. I think
Ah,
Agni has gotten buffed pretty hard here, and I think he could go well. Oh, with
no
these
shot.
comms, there's no way
What?
the manifestation just
No
happened.
way.
I'm just special like
What
that.
is that?
But
Yeah,
yeah,
that's crazy. Uh,
definitely a buff god here.
I'm not sure how much of a believer I am in an Agni. The character doesn't have very much CC immunity. He's not very safe. I don't know too much about that one, but Agni does do a lot of damage, and he does have an Athena that can peel for him. But you'd think with a Chalk and with a Chalk and an Athena ulting into the backline here of imaginary bishops, that's going to give its fallen room to get in there on this Agni pick and start dropping bombs on the heads of his opponents here. So it's really going to be up to yellow here to really get in there and prevent that from happening. And whatever jungler they choose here, I'd be tempted to take something like a Dodgy or something that pulls beads really well, because both backliners on the side of Feeding Frenzy do not have any CC immune ultimates, and that's something to take note of.
Yeah, that's definitely something to take note of when you have those two, and it's especially something to take note of when there's so many junglers up right now that have that CC. I mean, we're seeing a bit of CC being hovered around here, specifically in that Thor that we haven't seen in a while.
Man, I love Thor. I mean, Thor is the best, and I love Discordia too. It's like this draft was made for me. I mean, you got a Geb, Thor, and Discordia. Those are like
Yeah.
the top picks I love to play. Thor obviously has a lot of global pressure, and that's going to help out with this Athena a lot on the Feeding Frenzy side, because Joker's going to be able to get around here the map. He's going to be able to match these Athena rotations, and it actually has quite a bit of early pressure, maybe a little bit more than a Tsukiyomi here. So that's going to counteract the Uller and the duo and solo lane pressure that Feeding Frenzy has here. The Discordia has, I would say, a losing matchup here into the Agni, though. So that's also something to take note of, because Discordia doesn't quite have the range to get away and dodge those Agni bombs easily. Sure, you can dodge the first one, but the second and third are going to come down. The stun is going to come through, and Achaka is going to be ulting in a backline near you.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we're kind of seeing the matchup here. We've got tons of CC on the Bishop side. Feeding Frenzy, not the most CC immune ultimates, but we're going to see the pressure. You talked about the mid lane matchup, and I think it's going to be an interesting one. We've got the Imaginary Bishops fighting for their first SDL victory of the season, and it's going to be a close one, Bojo. But looking at the drafts, who do you think has the upper hand?
I think both drafts kind of excel in their own ways. I think Discordia is an undervalued mid laner. I think she provides a lot of damage and a lot of safety. While Chalk can blink into the backline, Discordia has that CC immune ultimate that she can immediately counter you and throw that apple on your head. Also has the ability to 3 and completely immune anything that really can happen to her. But I do really like the pressure coming out from Feeding Frenzy. I think this Uller and Chalk are likely going to go unchecked. I think it's honestly, just based on draft, I'm going to say Feeding Frenzy, but Imaginary Bishops could be looking for their first win here. And Joker on the Thor is a real X factor. We haven't seen this guy before. I have no idea how he's going to play, but Thor is one of those junglers where if he gets ahead, if he's able to dive into your backline freely, and especially with a Wukong that's going to be forcing Agni Dash and Uller jump, it can be very effective here. So I honestly think all eyes on Joker, to be honest.
Yeah, I can definitely attest to that. I just played a ranked game about half an hour ago where my Thor jungle went 2-10 and cost us the game. Hopefully, for the Bishops this game, Joker has the opposite effect, and we can see the Bishops with tons of pressure going into this game and landing those ults. But for me, the player to watch has got to be Fallen Legend, picking up that Agni pick, and it's gonna be interesting to see that mid lane matchup here.
Yeah, Agni does have pressure in the level 1, assuming that he does get the dash. It does a lot of damage early. You can clear very quickly. And, with the Tsukiyomi, Thor does typically outclear. And if both junglers get hog, honestly, they probably get to lane around the same time. It's going to be a lot of fighting around these mid camps as well on the left and right side. I do think that Feeding Frenzy has the better 2v2, simply on the fact that Agni is just easier to poke his opponent than
Yeah.
Discordia is. She has to be a little bit closer, and you're not going to want to be going anywhere near the Tsukiyomi, who has so many abilities, lots of slows, zone control. You don't really want to be fighting around that super easily. So, but maybe that duo pressure is going to come into play. Maybe Zombie Killer can rotate over from that duo lane and help out, and that's going to really influence things.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, we talked about the Bishops being winless so far this season. Obviously, that's going to bring you a little bit of hunger, and we're going to hop right into the game action here between the Bishops and Frenzy. And we are right in onto this duo lane action. Zombie Killer being brought a little bit low here. Alpha and Warlock have that pressure. Medusa and Geb. How often do you see Geb out pressuring their opponent, Bojo?
I'd have to say pretty rarely. You wonder if at the start of this one there was something going wrong there at that purple buff. Maybe there wasn't a proper leash going on there, but usually Geb is not going to be able to get that pressure on you. But that's really, really good for Imaginary Bishops. If they can keep this up and continue to not get pushed back, that's going to be great for them.
Well, unfortunately, Warlock is being dragged down here by Zombie Killer. So much poke. Now Alpha is in a spot of trouble. Gonna miss the Toxic Spit onto Cosmic Feeder. And Geb had been brought down pretty low, but he's just gonna back up, taking a bit of minion poke, but lots of HP loss for that Geb.
Yeah, he's gonna have to burn through his potions here now to try and sustain back up in the lane. You'll notice Athena still has 3 health and 2 multi-pots, so any pressure that the bishops had early is gonna fade.
Big taunt here from Zombie Killer. It's going to be evaded quickly by the knockup from Warlock, but now he's in a bit more trouble, taking some more minion aggro, and the bishops are a little bit low here, so it looks like Feeding Frenzy is going to take a look at these Harpies.
Yeah, they're gonna take a look over at those, and I'm gonna take a look over at this Chalk's starter item, Warding Sigil. It's something that got buffed recently in the latest patch, now providing you
Yeah.
with both 10 physical, magical protections, along with some health and some physical power, and some mitigation. Or excuse me, just extra protections. But it's a really strong item in the early game. We already mentioned how Chalk is a bully over there in the solo lane, and that's really going to help him push yellow back here and just continue to invade.
It'll definitely be interesting to see how that solo lane matchup works out, and definitely with the added power of that Warring Sigil now as Zombie Killer finds himself a
Ooh.
little bit deep in towards the backline here of the Bishops, getting out low with that dash, but Alpha is able to return a bit of poke, something that he hasn't been able to do so far at the beginning of this game in this lane, now finally returning some damage onto Feeding Frenzy's duo here.
Yeah, so far they're stopping the bleeding so far, and nothing really has gone too terribly for imaginary bishops, despite the fact that they're on the backside, and at least in terms of pressure on god picks. Although Jiggly Panda has something to say about that as he's over for blue buff.
Yeah, he definitely has something to say about it, and he's gonna run in there and snag that blue buff from Yellow Jin, who is now out of mana, and is gonna want to stay away from those 3 members of Feeding Frenzy. As even Agni is rotating over here, 3 minutes into the game, looking to put something on Yellow Jin. I'm not sure he realizes, although Fallen Legend is caught in a spot of trouble from a little bit of a root here from Shadow Stalker. Gonna dash back towards his tower, but Yellow Jin is still out of mana and a little too far forward in his tower. Tsukiyomi's gonna hit the stun, but Yellow Jin is able to survive as Jiggly Panda and Bonsai Joe maybe not on the exact perfect wavelength you want.
Yeah, not quite, but the poke is still going to be helpful for him as he does have that beads still, so possibly able to stay safe here for the next couple minutes. Ooh, Warlock taken low, but I just want to mention Fallen Legend did make that rotation over to solo lane there to try and maybe kill yellow, but was unable to do so and actually lost some of his minions there into tower. And you also notice he's got no health pots remaining, which means Shadow is going to be able to kind of run the map here for the next, I'd say, minute or so, as he has the potion advantage and he has the XP advantage.
Yeah, and I mean, definitely getting a bit of a poke advantage, hitting that root once more to Fallen Legend. The roots are on point so far for this Discordia.
Yeah, he's looking really good so far, Shadow Stalker. Discordia is a real lane bully if you can get to level 5 first, because you have so much kill pressure that Fallen has to be very, very careful here, especially with Joker on this Thor pick. He is level 5 now, although he is completely out of mana, so gonna have to back here. But this global presence from Joker is gonna come into play now, as he's gonna back, refill up, and possibly head over to the solo side. And I would like to see Jiggly Panda look for this blue buff again, but Joker now having the ultimate might make that invade a little more difficult. So we'll see if Bonsai decides to come over and help out, but so far he's on left side.
Yeah, and I mean, something interesting I'd like to have your thoughts on here is the Bluestone start by the Medusa and the ADC role. That's not something you see too often right now, but with the changes, maybe that's something that we could see a little bit more of.
Yeah, well, it's certainly going to help Toxic clear the wave here in the early game. The extra damage is obviously going to help you clear, which means you're just going to be able to help out with. Maybe they were doing that to compensate for the lack of pressure that the Geb has. So possibly something that Toxic is going to sell here in the late game, because I don't really think
Yeah,
you're going to want to be upgrading that to, one of
no.
the 2 starter items. You're just going to probably want to sell that and just get some attack speed or more power. You see he's building into the maces here. So just an early game addition to help with the early game and get off the ground.
Yeah, and it seems like both of these ADCs are going to pick up Jones to finish their first items off here, which is definitely something we're seeing a lot of so far, as Bonsai Joe is quickly circling around Yellow Jin in the solo lane. A lot of solo pressure so far, but he's going to miss a few abilities there, and Yellow Jin is going to sneak out with low mana once more, or is he? He's going to be slowed really quick, and Jiggly Panda has something to say about that. The knockup is there, but Bonsai Joe says, "Nah, I'm going to just take this guy's Harpy instead."
Yeah, nothing too worrisome there, but
Oh,
Cosmic Joker.
big ults from Alphas. Man, that is a gank for Joker, and he's going to take that kill. First blood.
Yeah, gonna take the kill and the first blood bounty, which is super valuable for them. But in mid lane, it looks like Bonsai is looking for some aggression here.
Yeah, he is. He's going to land right onto Shadow Stalker. The stun is going to hit, but Joker's on the back line landing. Zombie Killer picks off the kill on Discordia, but Joker will pick up the trade there for Fallen Legend, and is now Joker is the one subject to the abuse of Jiggly Panda. Geb's ult is going to save him for now.
What?
But Yellow Jin is going to pick up Bonsai Joe, who tried to escape out the right side of the mid lane, and that's going to be 2 picks for Imaginary Bishops in this fight.
Wow, Joker goes all the way to duo lane. He grabs a pick over there onto Cosmic and then heads to mid lane. And I actually thought he used his ult over in duo, but he didn't. He still had it for that mid lane fight, was able to come in there and just punish the overstay there from feeding Frenzy, grabbing a couple picks there for himself, now 2-0, and going straight into that Transcendence, which I absolutely love. It's a bit of a slow curve, right? But when you're ahead, you can afford to do it. Once you get those stacks online, you're swinging very, very hard. And also with the 10 CDR, once you have Transcendence stacked, it's going to help quite a lot.
Yeah, and I mean, that's something you'd like to see, someone taking advantage of a lead, buying some items that can really help accelerate their lead, and Joker's got a 2-0 start here, Bojo. That's pretty good for him.
Oh, it's very, very good. He does go Eye of the Jungle, though, which is a little unorthodox. I think on Thor, Bumba's Spear is a lot more, or Bumba's Dagger, excuse me, is a lot more common. It helps you heal off the camps a little bit more, which lets you look for these ganks on either side because you're able to sustain a little more than you would be otherwise. Eye of the Jungle, though, isn't bad, and it's something that we saw a lot earlier this season as Protector of the Jungle was just absolutely insane, and still is, by the way. But Bumba's Dagger and Bumba's Spear also items that are heavily prioritized right now, and you can see Bonsai went for the more traditional Bumba's Dagger.
Yeah, he went for the dagger, and I mean, on Tsukiyomi, that's always a good purchase. You can never go wrong with lifestealing off those camps, and it seems like we've got quite an orthodox start here from both teams. Just the 3v3 groupings. Both of the side lanes are got the 1v1 battles, and not too much commitment on too much action here. However, as I say that, we've got Zombie Killer charging a dash on the left side as the 4 players from each team are just kind of hovering around these the Scorpion here, Bojo, maybe looking to make a play.
Yeah, Joker's over here, and he has the ultimate, so he's looking for blood. Also has the blink, which is another bit of an unorthodox pick on Thor. Normally, you just want to be grabbing the beads to cleanse the CC from your opponents, but I suppose he doesn't really respect the Uller pick or the Agni pick and just goes for the blink, trying to really get in there. But unfortunately, stepped on a ward, so not quite able to get in.
Well, I believe we got an Athena ult over to the right side of the map in the solo lane, and Yellow Jin is chilling here at about half HP. Maybe not the most successful ultimate from the Athena here, is she's going to head back towards this mid lane, and 3 members from Feeding Frenzy are on the right side of this map, seeming to show that they want to put some sort of pressure down onto Yellow Jin, who is still up the map, and it's a good stun from Yellow Jin, who seems to evade pressure 24/7 as Jiggly Panda is going to use his hammer. Zombie Killer is chasing down Yellow Jin, but once again, Bojo, it seems like Yellow Jin is just slippery as a snake in this game.
Wukong is just one of those characters that's notoriously difficult to lock down. His 72 transformations, but really 3 transformations are more than enough to get you out of almost any situation. And let's not forget that Yellow Jin still has ultimate. I mean, if he's ever in any serious danger, he's just going to go up into the cloud and just sit there for a little bit. So I do like what Feeding Frenzy is doing, right? You got Jiggly Panda having pressure over here in this lane. He's trying to push it, and they're trying to capitalize on it. I mean, we're seeing rotations from Zombie Killer. We're seeing them from Bonsai to try and come over and steal these blue buffs, but it's not working. Yellow Jin is going to secure his own blue buff here. He still has ultimate. He's actually not in any danger of dying, in my opinion. So this pressure really hasn't done all that they wanted. And in the mid lane previously, when they tried to force the issue, it went terribly.
Yeah, it didn't go to their advantage. And I'd really like to see the Bishops start something up here. They seem pretty reactive as opposed to proactive. We haven't seen a Scorpion started up here or any sort of advance of pressure, but Yellow Jin is now looking onto Jiggly Panda really quickly, and Joker says, hey, I see a low HP target. I'm going to land my ult, and he's going to hit a huge stun. Yellow Jin with the spin on a Joker with the spin, and that is Jiggly Panda down for the count for the first time in this game.
A really good rotation from Joker again. I think Joker has looked phenomenal so far. I mean, you can just read the kills 3-0. He's been having a great game here, and he's going to start stacking his Transcendence and going for Scorpion now, but Athena's behind.
Yeah, Zombie Killer wants a little bit of damage onto Yellow Jin. Gonna force the beads and a quick dash using the last bit of mana droplets from his circle as Bonsai Joe is looking onto Joker with an aggressive ultimate, but really just not that much follow-up, and Warlock is now going to be over here saying hi to Zombie Killer for the first time in a while as stuns go traded both sides to both sides, and Bonsai Joe uses maybe a little bit of an overreaction on the beats.
Yeah, the beads being down is actually a bit of an issue here because Thor is a character that, if comboed properly, can easily 100 to 0 you just off of the ultimate. So I wouldn't be surprised if Joker is going to look for the Tsukiyomi now that those beads are down.
Yep, and Zombie Killer sticking with this pressured element from the support lane, looking for taunts around the map. Unfortunately, that is not doing his XP bar very well. He is level 8 and 2 levels down to Warlock on the Geb, but definitely not getting these Thebe stacks as fast as you'd like when you start this game.
No, and you can see that Warlock already has his Thebes completed, whereas Zombie is still working on the last couple here. But the sovereignty is being picked up, and honestly, Feeding Frenzy hasn't really had the start I think that they wanted. You know, when you're drafting this Chalk and this Uller and even Agni, like you're really trying to fight early here, but it just hasn't worked for them whatsoever, and they're down 4-1 in the kills. The gold is still relatively even, which is good, but you kind of want to put a Geb down before he can get online. You know, once that Geb starts getting like level 15, 16, he becomes very difficult to actually take down, and the Geb shields obviously just get more powerful as you go. So that's going to make the backliners and Shadow and Toxic also harder to lock down and kill. And Chalk and Tsukiyomi do have a lot of dive, but Cosmic's in trouble.
Oh, Cosmic is in trouble, and the ult from Alpha is going to plop down. Athena is here to just wave hello as Bishops are walking back towards, but Alpha unfortunately has 0 mana, and Bonsai Joe sees his opportunity to shine. He is going to easily delete Toxic Alpha with a very well-timed ult. Now as the rotations from Imaginary Bishops come across, and Joker's going to use his wall. However, Zombie Killer is proud to just walk backwards and claim their kill here, Bojo. But the aggression is still coming as Jiggly Panda is now on Ionic Joker, who is stunned and erased from the map. Bonsai Joe picking up the kill as now Feeding Frenzy are surging forward towards Shadowstalker. There is a quick hammer from Chalk, and the ult from Shadowstalker is charged, but it is just not enough as Joe picks up his second in a very short matter of time. That is a quick double, and Feeding Frenzy just turned this fight on its head really quickly here, and a quick Scorpion now for them.
Yeah, that's a really committal rotation there from Jiggly Panda. Comes all the way over for solo lane. He's going to lose his tower for that. They do end up grabbing that Scorpion, but they do pick up a lot of kills for it. I'm not actually sure who that favors. I mean, you do end up grabbing a bunch of kills, but losing all his farm. Yellow Jin already a level up. Now going to steal your blue buff. Got your tower. You've lost a lot of waves. I'm not actually sure how good that rotation is for Jiggly Panda. He's lost so much for that rotation all the way over that yellow's actually getting kind of big.
Well, you'd have to say it favors Feeding Frenzy in the immediate future as they're starting up this Pyromancer here with a bit of a player advantage. But as you mentioned, Yellow Jin now is going to have this level and tower advantage, which he's got to use on his favor. Jiggly Panda's ulting for this Pyro here real quick. As Feeding Frenzy takes out the Pyro, Jiggly Panda with his health bar just breathing a sigh of fresh air. Super low here as Agni's going to get the stun ult, and Thor's comes crashing down on towards Bonsai Joe. That was a much needed kill from Joker. The bonk, and Ionic Joker is going to pick up his 4th of the game here.
Joker went Heartseeker. He didn't even go into the Transcendence. He's just, thank you very much. Give me that immediate power spike. But
the Athena ult over towards Medusa is going to stun Feeder right before the ult comes in. So the Athena damage does not land onto Alpha, and it's going to be another unfortunate timing on that ult. It's just Zombie Killer comes over, and there's just not much produced from the Athena ult. However, Feeding Frenzy is doing well in these fights, although the ultimates are just not making their mark in terms of impact.
I think the ultimate from Athena was okay, but you just can't afford to miss the taunt, and you don't need to rush it either. You know, you still have your dash available and your blink, so there's no rush at all. You can simply dash forward, and if the Medusa dashes, you still have your blink available, and at least force the beads. You know, committing your Athena ultimate to just get absolutely nothing, as you say, is really not ideal. And it's something like the beads could be forced here, and Joker's going to come over now, and Cosmic might be a casualty of war.
Yeah, Joker might need this. Cosmic Feeder is getting a lot of hits on towards Toxic Alpha, who's out of mana, so it's just going to be Feeder against Joker on his own now. A good juke from Feeder off of the little backstep there. He's going to use both relics to save him, but Bonsai Joe is going to pick up Discordia on the back end of this. Joker really needs this pick, and his hammer is down. A big teamfight happening in mid here, and it looks like Yellow Jin is going to get out, and this is just really bad for the Bishops not being able to secure this kill in the duo lane.
It's really bad, and I was gonna praise Joker actually for being really patient there with his abilities, but then rushes his Berserker's Barrage, doesn't get any damage off, and a really great axe stun from Cosmic gets him out of danger. Now Joker's running for his life. Oh, he has the ult. Okay.
Yeah, he's going to use the ult to get out of here, and there's 4 members of Feeding Frenzy now going to turn their attentions towards this Gold Fury as Joker is going to slam down in his own home T2, Bojo, but just a bad little split there for the Bishops.
Yeah, not ideal. You know, if you're gonna lose a player in mid lane, you really have to pick up another player over in duo lane, and Joker just was unable to do so. And we just saw him ult out. But my question is, why didn't he ult in?
Yeah, that is a good question, and I mean, Fitting Frenzy is going to pick up this Gold Fury here for relatively free, as Yellow Jin uses his Blink to get a little bit of an extra shot here at this Gold Fury. Uses his one a little bit too early, but a good try nonetheless, and Feeding Frenzy are going to take a small lead here heading into this Fire Giant phase.
They're going to take a slight lead, and you'll notice in the jungle and in mid lane there for Feeding Frenzy, they have a 2-level lead. Both Bonsai Joe and Fallen Legend have about 2 levels or 1.5 on their opponents here, and that's really surprising because, I mean, Joker's 4-1. And I do have to say, I think that Heartseeker ends up biting him a little bit because the item is so expensive that by the time you get it online, I mean, you can see it. Bonsai has 3 items completed. He's got the Jotuns, the Crusher, and the Erentite, and Joker is still working on his 3rd item here, so not really the power spike that you maybe would want, but he's looking for something here in the solo lane.
Yeah, he's hovering around here, and there's 2 members on each side. Unfortunately for him, he's struck down here by Bonsai Joe, and Yellow Jin's going to use his ultimate to secure that kill on Joe for the trade. I think Joe had a good pick onto that Thor there, but a big rotation here from the Bishops is going to just kind of stare at Jiggly Panda, who is unfortunately very underleveled, but unfortunately for Yellow Jin, he's just a little bit too low in terms of HP to make an impact in this fight, as these players are kind of squabbling over a little bit of an impact that will not be resolved here.
Shadow needs to stop rotating. Rotating is a luxury for those who are ahead. And when you're not ahead, in fact, you're 3 levels down, you can't afford to be rotating over, losing waves, and losing tower. Because if it wasn't hard enough for Shadow to farm, now he doesn't have a mid T1 tower. He has no safety. He can't go anywhere past his red buff, really, without being very vulnerable to death. And I really think it came down even all the way earlier to when, you know, both these mid laners seem to be making a lot of these rotations over to solo lane, but it's really costing them farm. And Shadow just needs to stick his head down, get your farm, don't do anything crazy, and you only really need to fight if Feeding Frenzy is going for a bigger objective like the Pyromancer or the Fire.
Yeah, well, Cosmic Feeder's going to just secure this Draugr here for Feeding Frenzy, another little good additive bonus to them. And Imaginary Bishops, luckily for them, do have some leads in a few areas. Yellow Jin being the obvious one is a few levels up, 2.5 or so, and Medusa's got a little bit of a lead over Uller, maybe half a level. That's kind of it, though. And I mean, if you're Bishops, I mean, what do you got to do in this scenario, Bojo? Like, Geb has not been involved in a kill or a death yet.
Well, they're not so far behind where they're going to lose every team fight. So what you really need to do is just wait and not take a fight.
And that is unfortunate here for the Discordia. Brought super low. Oh. A great peel from the Geb. He's going to burst down Bonsai Joe. The shield and ultimate is going to drop the Discordia apple right on his dome. That is night-night Bonsai Joe. Sleepy time for you, as you are currently on the gray screen. And Yellow Jin is kind of just zoning away 3 members, as now Zombie Killer is going to pull Warlock, who's just left alone here in the mid lane. He's going to have to retreat, and now a little bit of a split team fight comes back as Joker is burst super quickly. Now the ult from Jiggly Panda comes out, but that is a quick hammer and a great reaction from Jiggly Panda to pick up that Thor kill. And unfortunately now for the Bishops, they're kind of just falling back down, as that's not great team synergy. Yellow Jin pulled by the taunt. The Agni Bomb, however, is a little bit too far forward, and it's just going to be a jungler trade here, Bojo, on what seemed like it would have been a pretty massive team fight.
I think the Bishops need to just take a step back. You don't need to make these fights super complicated, right? You get the initial pick, they're onto Bonsai. You know, just leave it there. Like, let's retreat. We don't need to continue to take a fight here. Oh no.
Yeah, that's going to be a solo pick in that dual lane for Cosmic Feeder, as Bishops were looking at stealing this Pyro, and Yellow Jin is still looking at stealing this Pyro. Zombie Killer's quite low, and he's going to actually ult out of here before he dies. He's going to survive, actually ulted on his own body, and survives with the Pridwin shield, but now Yellow Jin is in a spot of trouble, and Shadow Stalker is just eaten up by Bonsai Joe coming from behind. And now Bishops are just kind of scrambling in a weird position. Yellow Jin is super low, and I don't think he's gained a level, Bojo, in about 5 minutes.
No, it's been really tough. The bishops are just taking all these fights they don't need to. You know, they're on Pyromancer. Sure, you can have it. You know, let's split push mid. Let's grab all of our buffs, which are up, by the way. Let's just push our waves. You don't need to necessarily contest when your enemy is at an objective. You can simply just split push the map, and that's how you actually mitigate the loss of that objective. Going there and dying is possibly the worst decision you can make. Even if you steal it, both you and whoever is trying to get there is probably going to die in trade, and suddenly it doesn't even end up being worth it. I mean, at that point, you just have to split the map and try and farm. And so far, Feeding Frenzy isn't doing anything crazy. They're just allowing the imaginary bishops to come to them and then just
Yeah.
capitalizing on the team fight.
Well, we do have an Oni Fury spawning here, so we'll see another team fight uh, coming up here as Jiggly Panda is stuck in the right side of the map. And there are 5 members here from Bishop, so if they need to do something, they should be looking to do it now. However, this Uller has farmed up really quickly. Call him Cosmic Farmer because he has just gapped Toxic Alpha with 2 quick levels on his head, and Jiggly Panda has now realized and started to rotate the 5 members of Bishops. If they're going to do something, they got to do it soon, Bojo.
Yeah, they're not pulling the trigger now, which is unfortunate because that was a slight opportunity for a 5v4. I'd really like to see Yellow Jin, you know, he's the only one on his team that has a lead at this moment. So I'd really like to see him be the one that's diving the back line, but Chalk ult.
Yeah, Jiggly Panda is going to initiate onto the jungler here as the taunt is going to hit the Geb. A good 2-man stun here from the Geb as he's going to head back towards his backline. As Bonsai Joe's got a huge ultimate from the Medusa, stuns 3 players, and Fallen Legend will pick up Shadow Stalker. That is not a good start for the Bishops in this fight, but the Geb shield is going to stop Joker's bleeding for the moment as Zombie Killer and Joe are onto the backline, and Alpha is just melted by Bonsai Joe, picks up Warlock for the second, and that is going to be all sorts of terror now for the Bishops. Joker is super low heading into his backline, and despite a really good Medusa ult and a decent Thor dunk, it just fell on their heads really quickly.
You just have to engage sooner. I mean, Yellow Jin needs to be the one engaging. You can't sit back and allow Jiggly Panda to slowly rotate all the way over from solo lane and then get even a 2-man shot call. I mean, there's just no reason for it. If you're gonna take a fight there at the Gold Fury, you have to do it sooner. And now Yellow Jin just tries to contest a Gold Fury, which is impossible, loses his life for it, and it's just been really unfortunate from imaginary bishops. They're just not taking these team fights as simply as you can. You know, like let's just see a simple Sun Wukong blink engage, Thor ult into the backline. Like let's put some pressure on this Agni and this Uller.
Well, it's something to be noted that Yellow Jin has not died yet in this match until this very moment. Like that was not the way you want to spend your first death in a game where you have a lead over the other player. Throwing it at the Oni Fury, and unfortunately for the Bishops, now they're going to find themselves in about an 8k gold hole as Feeding Frenzy are going to turn their attention over to this Fire Giant. But what do you think they can do, Bojo? I mean, you mentioned the Sun Wukong initiations, but in a fight where they're just kind of zoning and trying to stop the bleeding, what can they do?
You can't stop the bleeding by going backwards. That's just not going to work because if you go backwards, they're just like the Chalk is going to come in. You're going to have an Athena ult. Tsukiyomi is a super dive character. I mean, Feeding Frenzy's draft is all about going forward for the most part. And so trying to stop the bleeding, I just don't think is a successful strategy. You just either need to look for a pick or you need to try and make space for your Medusa and your Discordia because right now both Cosmic and Fallen Legend have been put under zero pressure. Zero. They're able to come forward. They're able to free cast. So any hope that imaginary bishops have of stopping the bleeding just isn't going to happen because the backline is able to get in. So Yellow Jin needs to get in, and then Joker has to land.
Wow. Well, we're seeing a big initiation here by the Feeding Frenzy squad as Yellow Jin jumps out, and Geb, still without his second relic, is going to be bursted down pretty quickly here, tossing shield onto Yellow Jin. And imaginary bishops are just kind of licking their wounds here. It's just unfortunate that they're forced out in such a manner here. But it's really just Feeding Frenzy zoning them off with this fire, and it's not looking very good.
No, but Feeding Frenzy did use a lot of ultimates there. Chalk, Athena, and Tsukiyomi ultimate are all down, so this might be their moment.
Joe is super low, and Ionic Joker says, "Give me that kill." Not on the same page here as Feeding Frenzy. Is Bonsai Joe is kind of just the main beneficiary of these kills so far. Is that 3-man taunt
Oh!
from Zombie Killer is going to
Ayo!
be destructive for Imaginary Bishops. Good night. Blink twice and you'll miss that fight. Yellow Jin is the last to fall in this fight as Thor is just going to ult away. And what looked like it had a positive start was completely deleted by a monumental pull from Zombie Killer.
And that's a great Athena taunt. Make no mistake about it. However, both the backliners of Imaginary Bishops not only have beads, they both have ultimate. I mean, it's a very simple, counterplay to simply use your beats or your ultimate. That's going to completely turn it on its head. Zombie Killer is going to be taken super low, and the rest of his team isn't going to want to come near because a Discordia apple is going to spread. I mean, they have their Aegises available. You have the relics. That's what you're picking them for. And sometimes you're going to make positional errors like that when you're all stacked on top of each other. Realistically, Zombie Killer should not be able to get such a big, impactful taunt. Credit to them, but Imaginary Bishops there have poor positioning, and then, to be honest, just no relic usage.
Yeah, and in Geb's case, no relic acquirement. Unfortunately, 27 minutes into this match, which is kind of important to have as a support with Relic Dagger, nearly at EFG stages. Let's help out our friend Warlock a little bit here, Budget. What relic do you think he should purchase?
I think he's got to go for, let's see. He could go Shell. He could go Bracer. He could go Frenzy. I think any of those would be a viable option. Any sort of team fight relic here is going to be valuable. You could maybe make a case for Ankh, but I don't think it's that strong. Even Sprint might be a good option here for them. Yeah, any of those would help out quite a lot. But so far, I mean, the relic is going to help for sure. But Imaginary Bishops are just getting caught out in positions that they maybe shouldn't. They haven't quite fought as a unit yet. I haven't seen a single Thor ultimate go anywhere, honestly, into the backline of Feeding Frenzy. And due to that, Cosmic and Fallen are just able to do whatever they want. And it's going to make it very difficult and put all the pressure onto the backline of Imaginary Bishops because just no space is being created.
Yeah, and unfortunately for Imaginary Bishops here, like my friend Leona Lewis says, you cut me open and I keep bleeding. They are just still bleeding. This isn't love, it's Smite, but same goes here as it is just 15k of a gold depression here for the Imaginary Bishops, and they're just looming down on these Phoenixes.
And you can see just in the player damage numbers how Yellow Jin's at 20k, but Joker's only slightly ahead of his Geb player. Really hasn't had this late game impact that he would have wanted.
Well, there's another pull for the Athena right into some more damage as Yellow Jin is going to lick off those wounds, and Bonsai Joe is going to take this a moment to strike. However, his team is not with him here. Joker's going to head back and looking to capitalize as the Bishops. Yellow Jin being taught pretty low here. The beats is going to be forced out from the Tsukiyomi, as now up into the ult is Sun Wukong, and Toxic Alpha being picked is not great for this Bishop squad. That middle Phoenix is now brought down, and we are almost 30 minutes into this game, and Feeding Frenzy are looking at this second Phoenix here.
I really need the backliners of Imaginary Bishops to just press their Aegis key. Something I've yelled at Spooky Mars about for who knows how many times. The man just didn't press his relics, and it's the same situation here. I mean, this Phoenix is going to go down no problem. Feeding Frenzy are borderline unkillable at this point. And, I don't just want to, poo-poo the backliners of the Bishops, because honestly, their front line hasn't really, created space. Yellow Jin and Joker haven't been able to get in there as they could have. And when you're buying Blink on Thor, when you're buying Blink on Wukong, and you have beads, that's really what you have to do, because otherwise it just makes it so difficult for your backline to get any damage off. And that's what we're seeing here. And now with two Phoenixes down, Primal Fury is going to go down. This right Phoenix looks very likely to fall, and Imaginary Bishops are going to have to make some sort of desperation play to try and all in here. And at some point you have to choose where you're going to take your fight. So far, the Bishops have just been playing defensively, but they haven't made a play. They've just kind of sat back and let Feeding Frenzy be the ones to choose the team fight. Let's see Imaginary Bishop start a fight. I mean, we got Blink on Geb, still without a second relic. Let's see a big Blink Cataclysm. Let's get the fight started our way. If you're going to lose, at least lose on your own terms, and let's try and do things how we want to.
Yeah, and I mean, I believe our streamer Rosie here was pointing out this Obsidian Shard, which has been picked up by this Agni and unfortunately replaced from the original Conduit Gem starter, despite not finishing his full build yet. Maybe not the most efficient strategy, but hey, when you're winning by about 17k gold, this could just be an elaborate flex by Fallen Legend 0827.
Looking pretty confident, as well as Cosmic, who's just like, you know what? I'm playing Uller. I can auto cancel. I'm just slap a Deathbringer and a Wind Demon on there. Let me do a big couple fat crits there. And there's absolutely no Spectral Armors coming out from the Bishops, and I doubt they're ever gonna buy one. So, maybe get. Oh, okay.
Ooh.
The character who has crit immunity is buying some Spectral. Okay. I see you. So yeah, Fire Giant's gonna go down here. It is enhanced this time, which is simply more powerful. This right Phoenix is gonna be really difficult to defend. And again, Imaginary Bishops, let's just say a jungle fight. Let's try and catch a player out. Let's see if we can get a 5-man Geb ult. Let's try and take a fight. Let's catch them by surprise. Let's not be the one sitting back.
Well, the gold total has now increased to a tumbling 20k as Joker is looking for a sneaky impact in this fight. Unfortunately, he's going to head back here, and Sun Wukong is left to deal with these fire minions in crouching the Titan room. This is just seeming like a box that is closing smaller and smaller in towards the Imaginary Bishops, as Geb is probably deciding what relic he still wants, looking at these players walking towards their Titan room, feeding Frenzy now. Literally just looking at them, the blink ult from Jiggly Panda on towards the fountain room of the Imaginary Bishops, and an Athena taunt as Feeding Frenzy seem a little bit scared here to go in and just end this game. Yellow Jin's ult is going to be forced. Agni Bombs are dropped, and Jin is going to drop away now. Joker will pick up Bonsai Joe. That's a great pick for them, as Athena ult is going to ult in place for a little bit of damage.
Okay.
And unfortunately, that's not going to be enough. I believe that massive Athena ult was the real finisher there. But that is just going to be a quick finisher there for Feeding Frenzy, picking off that first game in the set.
It's okay to lose. It's okay to lose badly. But at some point, you got to try and do something. Imaginary Bishops, the last 5 minutes, last 10 minutes, just kind of didn't try and force anything. They didn't try and take a team fight on their terms. You see it in SPL all the time. Even with multiple Phoenixes down, you can still lose the game, and it just proves how difficult it is to actually end the game when, a team is coordinated. And Imaginary Bishops, yes, they lost. Yes, they lost by, 15k, whatever. That doesn't matter. It's just, I want them to be more confident. Let's engage. Let's use our global ultimate. Let's get in their backline. Fading Frenzy really didn't have any obstacles in their way to simply run at the Bishops. They didn't have any answers. And it looked at the start of this game like they had pressure. I mean, Joker was 3-0? They had a 4-1 kill advantage, and they just weren't able to transition that into anything due to some questionable rotations there from Stalker. He kind of got really behind Fallen Legend. And as the game progressed, it just Yellow Jin couldn't have impact. Joker barely out damaging his support Geb. I mean, it just wasn't cohesive in the slightest.
Yeah, and you'd have to say, in a weird game that lasted about 33 minutes, the top damaging player was Yellow Jin, who seemed to be at the fight the least and was on the losing team. Definitely some weird stats in this game, and it just fell flat for the Bishops about halfway through the game when they really just were out of place on a few team fights. And you'd have to say that maybe the turning point of that game, Bojo, was when Yellow Jin didn't rotate for that fight.
Yeah, over when Chalk rotated to blue. I mean, they did grab multiple picks there, but Yellow Jin got big off of it, right? He decided not to rotate, and due to that, he actually had a 2-level lead there on Jiggly Panda. He had the lead. He could have done something with it, but it just could never really get off the ground. I don't think I saw Thor or Wukong use a blink offensively a single time both games, but you got to give credit where credit's due. I think Feeding Frenzy played as a unit really well. It's something that sometimes you don't even see Platinum and even some Diamond level solo laners actually rotate out of their lane and have presence across the map. And Jiggly Panda did a great job of that. And Yellow Jin maybe could take a page out of the book there and try and help out Shadow when things aren't going so well. There's a bunch of things that could have happened, but I do think Feeding Frenzy played a good game, but it just hurts when Imaginary Bishops could try, and it just doesn't seem like they're trying.
Yeah, they fell flat in a few parts of the fight. Hopefully, this will inspire them, bring a little bit better out of them in the second game of this set. But there's definitely some changes that could be made, and I'm interested to see how the second game is going to go. But we are going to head quickly into our intermission here right before the second game of this set between Feeding Frenzy and Imaginary Bishops. We will see you back in a minute. Smite Nation, I'm your host, Skirpulla, back with Dr. Bojo.
Hi, we're back.
And we're back into
Game
game
two.
two. Whoa, Feeding Frenzy, Imaginary Bishops, and right into the picks and bans, Bojo. I mean, I'd really like to see the Bishops make a comeback in this game.
They certainly have the capacity to do so, and I wasn't trying to be overly harsh. I mean, they had moments. I mean, they were up 4-1. They had opportunities. Yep. They can very easily take game 2 here. They just need to clean up a few things. Play a bit more simple Smite. You don't need to go crazy. Yeah, it's really still anyone's game here going into game 2.
Yeah, for sure. And it looks like the Bishops do not want Feeding Frenzy to have the Geb. They had the first game, and they're going to ban away this time. Yeah, so Loki once again banned by Feeding Frenzy. I'm not sure. This might be a Joker pick.
It might be, and I thought he looked really good on the early game Thor. Thor in the late game is a lot more difficult than the early game. You're a lot more susceptible to death. You do less damage. You have to be a bit more careful with your positioning and time your abilities a little bit more. So it makes sense that the Loki is banned. Maybe that's something he's super comfortable on, but yeah, I think he still could pick the Thor, run it back, salty run back. I wouldn't be opposed. I thought he played well. Let's just transition into the late game a little better.
And yeah, Thanatos is a ban that we are seeing that we do not usually see.
Thanatos is super. Thanatos is like super OP ranked god. I gotta tell you, he does absolutely immense amounts of damage. Obviously, the execute is great with having multiple maces in the game. He just thrives really well and gets off the ground earlier because Jotuns is cheaper. So it's a really good pick right now, and this does leave a lot of meta picks open. Feeding Frenzy wants to run back Athena Uller. I don't blame them. I thought both of those picks looked really good for them. I think Achilles' top pick is a little strange because it's certainly not one of the top 2 solo lanes you're typically going to be looking at. You think maybe you could grab that a little bit later down the draft because you can grab some other picks, but Medusa is hovered here. And there's a top 2 guardian. We're seeing the Capri. That's a pick that is super hotly contested there in the mid lane, and there's a Persephone, and Persephone does what she always does, which is major team fight.
Yeah, I mean, described as an alt bot by some, and definitely a meta pick. We're seeing Feeding Frenzy on these meta picks so far. 1, 2, 3 of them off the start of this draft. Uller is another one you talked about. And it'll be interesting to see Cosmic Feeder running back this matchup into the Medusa once more, most likely a comfort pick for Toxic Alpha. But now got the Capri on their side, maybe a slight bit more pressure. Despite seeding that early pressure, Feeding Frenzy early in the last game, they definitely had a strong late game.
They did. They looked really good in the late game. They looked like they were playing together as a unit, and it was really nice to see. I do think it's interesting that Odin is. Oh, never mind. He's banned. I didn't see him. Never mind.
Yeah, no, he is banned. I didn't not. You're good, but Thanatos is the one that really surprised me as a ban, especially when
Hell.
like yeah, hell's the ban there. But I'm assuming the Bishops banned out the Thanatos because they wanted to play Kepri. But that's a little bit of an ambitious ban for the first phase.
That actually makes sense. Good read there, Skirt. That actually makes a lot of sense. Obviously, Kepri Revive gets executed through by Thanatos and Achilles. So both executes are now off the table unless they want to grab a more again. Oh, never mind. It's banned. So there's absolutely no executes coming the way of Imaginary Bishops. So that is a good read there from you. And I'm happy they banned the Tsukiyomi because I thought that Bonsai looked really problematic on it. He was absolutely in there, was causing havoc among the backline. Was a real trouble to deal with. So I'm happy they banned that away because honestly, like we don't need to see it a second time to know he's going to have a good game on it.
Yeah, it's always a strength ban to ban someone that has had a good game on a god and can have another good game on the god. It's almost a double sum ban because you know that they can play it. They just won on it, and play something else, try something different. And Defender ban is a good one as well.
Right. Let's see if he has something else in the God pool. Right. The Tsukiyomi looked really good. It's kind of a Mickey Mouse God. You just press four, but it does the work. You do have to time it really well. But respect band is a valuable tool. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's a respect band. Like no. Let's see you do something else. But Feeding Frenzy doesn't need to do anything else. They're just running back their same draft, but with a different mid laner, and in my opinion, a stronger mid laner in the Persephone. And Chaka's gonna do what he's always done. And so far, Chalk looks really, really deadly here into a Khepri and a Medusa. Both characters that don't get away from that Chalk ult very easily. They're very susceptible to slows. Chalk is going to be very difficult for those two characters to kill. And let's not forget the silence from the Chalk ultimate. That's going to prevent a Khepri ultimate from actually doing any damage. And while I do love Merlin, I think he's also extremely susceptible to Chalk, and I'm a little bit questionable here. I think if Feeding Frenzy just grabs the Kamazots, I really don't know what the bishops are going to do.
Yeah, and I mean, we're talking about another god that does not have a CC immune ultimate. With the Merlin, it does have the flicker for some mobility, but it doesn't have a CC immune ultimate. Speaking of someone who is very CC immune, the Robin is selected.
Yeah, Robin has a really easy time of ganking Persephone and Shock. So that's a really great pickup for them. It's going to be easy for him to find these ganks. And you mentioned it, without a lot of CC immunity, there's the Daji being locked in. Daji going to be able to pull the Merlin and the Khepri fairly easily. Yes, you can cleanse a person, but that requires a lot of timing. It's a lot of commitment. And you have to get it right. If you get it wrong, you're going to lose the team fights really hard here. I have to say, I think Feeding Frenzy have a very excellent draft. And again, I think if Joker can get off to that early start that he had last game, he can continue to make waves. I think that Heartseeker pick second really caused him problems because your power spike is so delayed. It takes so long to actually get online and continue doing your damage. That Bonsai caught up. He started having impact. And yeah, I think Robin, though, is a really good pick here.
Yeah, I would have loved to see. I was thinking in my head, but before this last jungler selection was locked in from Feeding Frenzy, I would have loved to seen like a Hunt Bats or a Daji for that CC, as we talked about the lack of CC immunity for the bishops, and they did. They went and they took Daji. That's a god that can lock down multiple targets with their CC ult, and really just be a disruption for that team.
Daji is just a really powerful pick. Going up in the Palau is just very powerful. You don't even need to pull anyone. Just the presence of you being there forces the enemy team to respect you. So that's a great pick. I think the Feeding Frenzy draft is excellent. I think it does everything they want to do and what they did last game, but better. I think the Bishop's draft here is a little concerning to me. I think this Merlin is going to have a bit of a hard time getting off the ground here. I think I'm not sure even if they win the 2v2. But Imaginary Bishops looked good last game. They had a good early game. They just need to bring it back, and then let's get to that mid game. Let's get to that late game and play a bit more as a unit, a bit more together, and they can easily take this game off of Feeding Frenzy.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, it's definitely something worth noting that the bishops banned out this Thanatos so they could play their Khepri here. Hopefully, or it seems like they've got a lot of trust in this Khepri, so hopefully it can provide something for them. And with two sort of diving front laners in Achilles and Robin, hopefully they can put it to good use and save those guys in a team fight and just cause the extra edge for them.
It seems like Jiggly Panda as well really likes to rotate out of that solo lane. So I actually like what Yellowjin did. You don't actually need to counter rotate all the time, especially if the gold tier is not up. So, let Jiggly Panda rotate over, and then let's just make sure everyone else gets out safely. And then Yellowjin can start getting a couple levels lead again, and then they can get in that same position they had last game. It seems like both of these teams have a lot of comfort, maybe too much in rotating across the map here, and that's leaving a lot of farms still available. I think the bishops could easily take advantage of that and really get to this late game. And when we're talking about gods like Merlin, excuse me, that's a character you have to get to late game before he really has that much impact. It simply just doesn't have any damage early game. He doesn't have pressure except for the first wave. But when you're stepping up and there's a Daji, it's a little sketchy.
Yeah, it's definitely sketchy, and something you want to notice is Dachi is banned almost all the time against Feeding Frenzy. As we head into the game here real quickly, but 67% of the time they were banned against Bonsai Joe on that Dachi. It's definitely something to keep an eye on here.
That is a really high percentage ban rate here. Maybe Bonsai is some sort of dodgy specialist here, but he does get his pick here. And I think it's going to be a game of junglers once again and a game of solo laners. I really think last game just came down to the dive of both teams and the 2v2s that were going on there. Yellow Jin and Joker
Ah.
had it for the first bit, but not for the second.
Warlock gets his level 2 here quite early, and he really needs to use that dash as an aggression tool here. He has that level 2. Athena doesn't. You gotta pull it before the dash comes out. Unfortunately, he doesn't, and Zombie Killer is able to regain some back of that pressure, and the taunt is Ionic Joker.
Oh,
Picks up Fallen Legend. That is a very important pick in the beginning of this game.
yeah, it looks like we're getting a repeat of game one here. Joker is just going off here in the early game. He's got to keep this momentum though. Let's get these mid camp controls. And so far, that's a really great start for him. Going to get off the ground here, just like last game, and he's going to grab that Jotuns here really, really quickly. And Yellowjin, even off camera, is getting a pick onto Jiggly Panda. Is this the comeback?
Big taunt from Zombie Killer, but Warlock is going to be picked. Now
Joker's
Joker is
here.
in on this duo lane, and Alpha will pick up Feeder in return. Zombie Killer is now super low. There's the 2 from Ionic Joker getting low. Still, Zombie Killer and Alpha took a bit of damage from these minions, but he is going to pop in with a spray. Joker with the auto, and Zombie Killer falls. That is 4 quick picks for the Bishops, and this is that early game pressure we talked about. They're getting full advantage of it this time.
Full advantage indeed. Once again, Joker just seems to be the early game maestro here. 2-0 and 1, only 2 minutes into the game, just rotating everywhere and getting all this pressure. You mentioned it, maybe Warlock could have played a bit more aggressively in the lane, but Joker, after grabbing a pick in mid lane, simply rotates high all the way over into the duo lane. And it feels really bad for Cosmic as you're up down in your Uller jump, you just see a Robin beneath you and you go, oh, well, that sucks. I'm dead, boys.
Yeah, a little unfortunate for him, but I mean, luckily we've seen he's quite decent at farming in the late game. Hopefully he can pick up some slack as the game goes on, as we see more skirmishes happening in the duo lane here. Kemper being forced to retreat once more back towards their own tower, and the pressure is still there for Feeding Frenzy with this comp.
It still is Feeding Frenzy. The Uller is always going to have pressure as long as Cosmic is able to hit his axes, and hopefully he's able to do that as this game continues. But so far, Imaginary Bishops are the one that have all the pressure. I mean, they already have about a 1,200 gold lead in 3 minutes. That's nothing to laugh about. And right now, Joker is the guy to watch. He's going to be determining where these fights are taking place. Who are we going on? You see there, just hitting level 5. He's hovering this left side here, and he could go to duo once again.
Yeah, he's looking around for it here, and he's definitely got that level 5 3 minutes in, which is what you love to see as a jungler, Bojo. When you're heading around these camps and you know you have a good start, when you've hit level 5 just after the 3-minute mark, it's definitely a way to tell that you're farming well.
Yeah, he's certainly farming well, and he's got 1,900 in hand, so actually could back for Jotuns here after these back camps on the left side. So if he does choose to back here, he's going to be able to kill anybody on the map for a short period of time with that massive power spike. But you'll notice that Bonsai Joe actually gets his back off first there. He's got that Jotuns in hand. So Bonsai's actually ahead of Joker here in terms of rotation. So now Joker's, you could maybe say, even lost his window here. I mean, got 2,100 gold in hand. That's great. But, you know, the cost reduction of Jotuns really favors you backing early for it.
Yeah, and it's a little unfortunate in terms of that, because he had to do his rotation, but he's looking for a gank on Jiggly Panda, who is big enough to just say that I'll just take both of you guys. I mean, Yellow Jin was knocked low enough in that little battle between the two of them, and he's just going to be able to stay here and look at this totem despite being a level down.
Well, Joker is still on the map here. He's got 2,200 gold in hand here, so he actually can't fight Bonsai Joe in the slightest. And you wonder if he had that item in pocket for that solo lane gank, he would have done a lot more damage here. And right now, Bonsai is actually getting the better of him in terms of farming. You can see he's already on his back camps on time. Bonsai is doing a good job of mitigating what Joker did in the early game, right? You know, even if your opponent is getting those kills, if you can just keep up your farm, you can see he's on level. And that's exactly what you want to do. You don't necessarily have to counter gank. If you can just keep your farming up, really powerful.
Yellow Jin has about 2,600 gold in hand, and he is not spending it. He's going to use his ult. Unfortunately for him, that is a big eraser, and that is exactly why you back to get those items online. 2,700 gold is just way too much to have in pocket. And Joker now is looking at Bonsai Joe, but unfortunately for him, he's fighting into a 2v1 as this red buff is in contention now. Joker's super low, and the pull comes down from Bonsai Joe. We talked about his farming prowess, and he has now capitalized on that. That is 2 quick kills for this Dodgy and a good flip around for Feeding Frenzy.
I mean, the solo jungle of the bishops are playing assault here. I mean, you can't be backing with 2,500 gold in hand. It's just it just delays your power spike so much here that Bonsai Joe just has absolutely no problem. I mean, he's a full item up there on Joker, despite the fact that Joker had possibly the best early game you could ever have. And right now that they've almost lost all momentum, the gold is almost even, and now Bonsai is going in further.
Yeah, he's going in even more now. Looking at Shadow, a good pull from Warlock here is going to be able to save the life of his mid laner for now. And Zombie Killer once again looking aggressive on that. Going to get the taunt, but there's just really no synergy here for Feeding Frenzy in terms of getting that damage off, or at least comms. Fallen Legend just kind of looking at those minions instead, but the poke is still good there for Feeding Frenzy.
It is still good, and you like to see them playing a bit aggressively here. Warlock there had a really good pluck. I'd like to see him back though here pretty quickly, so he can start stacking that Gauntlet of Thieves. You know, anytime you're starting a stacking item, you want to back as soon as possible to get those online, because just the nature of stacking items is the longer the item usually sucks at the start, but once you have those stacks completed, it's really powerful. And that's usually why you want to rush that Thebes, is to get that online and give those protections to your backline so you can start fighting in these 2v2s a lot more confidently. You can see that Zombie Killer already has a couple stacks going here. Warlock is backing now, so he's going to start stacking that up, and Joker's hovering the left side, so, you know, things are heating up here.
Well, luckily for the bishops, we're seeing Yellow Jin doing a bit of farming. He stole the Harpy away from Jiggly Panda in that solo lane, so that's a plus, and he's still got a level lead. So you kind of want to just hedge on those little leads you have. But despite having that early lead and not cashing in on those items, what does Joker have to focus right now for the bishops?
I think Joker should be hovering around this left side like Bonsai, who's looking for a gank here. But I think Ulir is a really easy gank here for a Raven. Also can go on Persephone fairly easily. But at the same time, I think the bishops are happy just playing it back, as Merlin is an extremely late game character.
Wow. Lots of aggression coming in from Joe. The flank onto Shadowstalker. He's going to have to use his flicker, and he flickers right into Fallen Legend. Trap. There is a dodgy ult as well that's going to hit. The quick beads cleanse happens, and he is safe under his tower for now. A pretty good evasion. I'm surprised Feeding Frenzy did not have enough aggression onto that, and Joker is now going to pop into Fallen Legend, drawing the beads with a quick stun, and Bonsai Joe will pick up Warlock on that back. Joker doing some evasion, going to pick up the Hands of Fury onto Fallen Legend, picking up the kill. Zombie Killer just there to watch the unfortunate falling of his mid laner. Now that's a quick 1-for-1 trade. And that certainly is going to favor the bishops here for now, although that is a Athena ult, a Chalk ult, and a Bonsai Joe back on the back of your T2. Taking quick assault from these minions, however, is Bonsai Joe super low. Joker's going to fall, and Yellow Jin is looking very quickly for this dodgy. Going to find that pick. That's a big one for Yellow Jin now. He's level 10, and you saw rotation out of nowhere is that 2 goes a little bit wayward, but Yellow Jin picks up a second kill and is now right in the face of Jiggly Panda. The hammer, however, is right back into the face of the players. They're not going to come in for him, but Imaginary Bishops did a good job of cleaning up this fight.
These rotations are crazy. I mean, Jiggly Panda comes all the way over from solo, then Yellow Jin comes all the way over, and then Toxic is here? Like, holy smokes, everyone is coming over to this mid lane fight. Jiggly Panda is running for his life here, but while that's all going on, Cosmic is just getting big over here, and they can't even grab the Chalk player, so he's going to get out happy with that one. Again, though, it looks like the bishops are doing fairly well in this early game. They're only down about 500 golds here, which is, you know, inconsequential. And so far, Joker is on the good end.
Joker is on the good end, and he is on the front end now, looking for Feeder. A good stun there. He's going to wait it out, use the jump away, not use his beads. That might have been a problem. The kick flick happens to do some more damage, and the one is going to be able to find it, Bojo. That is not what you'd like to see out of your ADC. The beads are a handy tool.
Yeah, he's stepping up a little far. I'm not sure if he ever survives there, so I actually don't hate the beads hold, because, you know, realistically, Robin is never gonna you're never gonna get away from a Robin. He's just too mobile, and the flip kick is too easy to immune the axe. So actually, not the worst hold there from Cosmic if that was intentional, but stepping up there a little bit far. But now Toxic is almost getting hunted down here by Feeding Frenzy, but Not quite. And so far this is what we want to see, a very action-packed game here from both sides, and Joker really feeling himself right now and making impact on the map where he needs to be.
Yeah, I got a question, Boja, for some of the players in the chat. If you're Toxic Alpha, you do that rotation there to the speed buff, and you pick up a kill. Is that worth it? Did he lose too much, or was that a good rotation?
I'd say it's about equal, right? Because you do grab a kill and you do help your team overall, right? But you do lose farm to Cosmic. So you can see he's about a half level down here, maybe a full level. Nothing too major, right? That's not going to be that big of a deal. I think on paper, I think Feeding Frenzy comes out on top, but I think in terms of mental, the Bishops would be happy with that decision.
Well, unfortunately for Yellow Jin, he falls again, and once again, 2,800 gold in hand. Someone's got to teach Yellow Jin how to back here, because that is too much gold to have in hand. He still only had that mystical mail for that fight, and Shock once again having nearly a full item advantage. It's just the difference in these fights.
Our spikes are extremely important to fight around. And you can see here, Joker, right, looking for ganks, but he has Serrated in hand, which I believe is what he's going for here. And yeah, just buying your items as soon as you can is super helpful here. And that's honestly the only reason that the Bishops have lost some of these fights, is just because they just they didn't have their items online. They didn't have the numbers to really win the team fight. Feeding Frenzy has capitalized very nicely on that, make no mistake. But you wonder how differently would have gone if the Bishops just spent their gold.
Yeah, and you can definitely point out a handful of times where they had the gold to spend. I mean, now for Jin, that's 2 times where he had at least 2,500 gold in hand. That is pretty much any item you want, especially as a solo laner. There's tons of items available for under 2,500 gold, and he just did not back, unfortunately. Maybe found himself on the cause of death for both of his times there, but Feeding Frenzy, grouping up here, the duo lane is just looking towards a Scorpion now.
Yeah, the Scorpion is a target for sure, and you want to get that down at some point. It is super valuable just to just have your buffs upgraded. It actually helps you out quite a lot here. But Yellow Jin, he's got the Mystical Mail and the Pestilence online. He's not going to be falling very easily anytime soon, but in mid lane,
Oh.
someone might be.
Yeah, Fallen Legend might be fallen. Sorry to use the pun on that one, but 2 more pulls from the Dodgy are going to be able to pull them in. A
Whoa!
good ult is going to come in, and all members are super low. Joe picks off lock, and that is going to be the end for Shadow Stalker. Is 2 picks for Feeding Frenzy, but Joker will pick up 1. Fallen Legend falls in the back off of that initial pound of damage. A quick turnaround for Feeding Frenzy, and Yellow Jin will Panda as well. That's a good little swap. Unfortunately, Joker does fall, but Bonsai Joe seems to be the driving force in these team fights.
He does, and you'll notice this time Cosmic's the one who's rotating all the way over from duo lane here, trying to make an impact, but gets there a little bit late as now Toxic gets that wave going into tower and is stealing some farm away. Great job from him to take advantage of possibly an over rotation there from Cosmic, but just absolute mayhem going on in this game. I mean, we've got 20 kills in only 13 minutes. Really, action is happening everywhere, and I wouldn't even say one side has a distinct advantage right now, but if you're going to give it to anyone, it would certainly be Bonsai Joe here, who's 6-1, working on the Erendite, it looks like now. And he's done a really good job this game of simply just being in the right spots. Sometimes that's the hardest thing to do on a jungler, is there's no exact science to it. It's just feeling of what side of the map do I need to be on and which target am I going on. And so far, he's done a really good job of being where he needs to be.
Yeah, for sure. You definitely could say that. And the Transcendence has been picked up here now. An interesting selection there by the Uller. It's a little bit later into the game, but he's finally started up. We're about 14 minutes in. How do you feel about the Transcendence at this point in the game?
I think Uller kind of needs Transcendence. Otherwise, you're unable to really spam your abilities in the late game just due to lack of mana. So going at first or second item is I think totally fine. First item you can do, but obviously Jotun's is super powerful, so it makes sense he's holding.
Ooh.
And
Big
now
Foliar from the
action.
Athena, and Merlin is going to get some damage in there as well. Now flickering away, super low. Is the Dodgy going to hit? It is, and Purse's ult is going to tangle as well. Shadow Stalker is unfortunately without beads and without a life. Bonsai Joe picking up his 7th of the game. Warlock is going to head back into his tower, but that Dodgy ult just pulls so many beads, and right now it's pulling Joker into the back of his T2. Zombie Killer looking to finish off the kill, but it's not going to happen. They're instead just going to finish off this T1, and Feeding Frenzy is starting to unsheathe their claws a little bit here.
I'm not 100% sure, but I think Warlock had his ultimate that entire time. So you can just use it as a Geb shield, as a cleanse. You can cleanse the dodgy chain there from your mid laner who doesn't have beads. But let's give credit where credit is due, as Alpha's going to likely fall here in the background or not. Actually, Bonsai Joe might be in some trouble.
I'm not sure about that. There is Feeding Frenzy and a mass of members coming towards Toxic Alpha. Wards are your friend, and in this case, not the friend of Toxic Alpha. Bonsai Joe will pick up the kill. Who else? And wow, that's a 9th for Bonsai Warlock falling here, and that's just the classic bait and switch from Feeding Frenzy.
You know, Skirt, I have a feeling this is why Bonsai Joe was not allowed this dodgy, and Feeding Frenzy has had the dodgy banned 67% of the time against them. Because Bonsai Joe right now is 9-1. He's got 9 kills here. Absolutely, as you mentioned, the driving force here of Feeding Frenzy. He's going absolutely crazy. And I want to give credit where credit's due. That previous ultimate there in the mid lane, it's actually quite a skill to keep track of your opponent's bead timer. And knowing that he had the extra 30 seconds there to look for his chain there onto Shadowstalker was really smart and a great use of timer. And that's really great when you're playing a character like Dodgy or like Hun Bats or Ares, where you really have to keep track of these things. It just makes you that much more effective because you know which character you can go on.
Well, Yellow Jin is doing what he does best here, and that's just steal farm and farm up and realize when a team fight is not going to go your way. He's able to claim a little bit more farm here, and he inches ever so close to that level 16. A little unfortunate here for the imaginary bishops. They're just not finding the abilities and cleanses they need to be finding in these team fights. Wards help with that as well, and they could have used a few of those in that fight as the goal difference is starting to spiral downhill. But you mentioned it. I mean, we haven't seen an ult or a blink from Khepri yet in this game, despite them prioritizing the pick and banning out a Thanatos for it, which ultimately led Feeding Frenzy to be able to pick up Dodgy here.
Yeah, it's okay to go Blink. I think Blink is really strong, but in solo lane, we got some action happening as Yellow Jin is already super low.
That is an aggressive dash from Toxic Alpha, and now without mobility, Bonsai Joe, this could be a big pick, and he's going to take one out as he goes. Shadowstalker will pick it up, and Joker will pick it down as he falls to his death. 2 members of each side are left here, part of E3, as there was a quick back on the back of that fight from Yellow Jin. But Feeding Frenzy, it's just they're doing about the same they did last game. They have a little bit of a lead here, and now they really are going to have to just take over and win that last fight that's going to be able to pull them through in this game, as Warlock is stuck here in the muddy sludge of Jiggly Panda's ability. Now as Zombie Killer preys on these back camps, Jin heading up here and doing a stun. But as this little intermediary action happens, Bojo, I mean, what can the Bishops do at this point?
I think Yellow Jin needs to be rotating first. Both games, really, we've seen Jiggly Panda be the one to first rotate into the mid lane.
Yeah.
And just get these big ultimates off. If Yellow Jin is the first one to do that, it's going to be the reverse effect, and the Bishops are going to be able to go forward instead. So I think now, we're 18, almost 20 minutes into the game. Teams are going to start transitioning into late game and heading over to this Fire Giant. So it might be a little late here for Yellow Jin to do that, but I think it's going to be the same as last game. I think the dive here from the Bishops is excellent. Both Persephone and Uller are very, very vulnerable to an Achilles and a Raven. Very easy time diving them. So if Yellow Jin and Joker can just get in there in the team fights, it's going to make it a lot easier for the backline of the Bishops to come forward and get their damage off.
Well, coming forward now is the Feeding Frenzy with an Athena ultimate, and Bonsai Joe diving onto Joker, gonna use his cleanse there really quickly, and the Purse ult comes smacking down, trapping targets, specifically Warlock here, as the dodgy ult is gonna pull, but not take anyone into their certain doom. Warlock still surviving with a manageable health bar here, as Bishops are getting out of this fight, and Medusa is a little slow to rotate to this, but Merlin is trapped in mid with this Uller on his face. He is going to be able to back up slowly here, and Feeding Frenzy are just going to look at this Pyro instead of the big fire.
Right, and that's the sensible decision. You don't have your ADC here yet, so let's just take the small objective. They do use every ultimate, though, so this might be a moment here for the Bishops to try and look for something. both Medusa and Khepri still have their ultimate, which means Joker in particular, or even Yellow Jin, could try and go a little bit crazy here and just have a Khepri ult save them from danger. Joker really. It seems like both the junglers this game are really the ones who are deciding the pace and choosing where these fights are going to happen. And Joker right now is choosing to fight on left side, and I don't see any wards over there, but he got spotted out somehow.
I'd like to see a Capriel in this game, Bojo. It doesn't have to save someone. I'd just like to see it. I'd like Warlock to use it. It doesn't have to save a player. It doesn't have to do the flashy little orb that pulses and brings back to you to revive someone. I'd just like to see him to save his team and get someone out of a fight or provide them a little element of safety.
Right. It doesn't need to be necessarily a revive. If you just, it also gives movement speed and is a cleanse, so you can use it offensively even. It doesn't have to be defensive in the least. But yeah, so far Warlock hasn't really looked for or had opportunities to really shine on it. But right now, we're 20 minutes in. We're getting to the late game. This is where, a lot of players on your team are going to be getting low, and this is where this Khepri can really have impact, especially with his 2 providing all those mitigation. But he's looking to go in as he grabs a mystical mail.
Yeah, he's really looking to go in, and unfortunately, for these guys, the ADCs are once again just duking out in a bloody battle in this duo lane, just hiding around rocks for maybe the 3rd time. The little spray is gonna miss here, and it's just a little bit of a standoff duel, Bojo. I mean, someone needs to do something. It looks like Joker is planning on doing something. He's gonna wrap on this, which means the bishops need to stay passive on the right side of the map, and Joker is making this rotation now after a long time of just staring at each other around rocks. He realizes he's gonna head into axe form now, and the stun is gonna hit. There's the jump, and it is just badly timed from this squad. An easy getaway here from Cosmic Feeder. And now this is going to allow Feeding Frenzy to realize, hey, there's 2 of those on the right side. This is going to be an easy fight to jump in from shock. Devastation as the Persephone ultimate hits. No one's going to be pulled in from that dodgy ult, but it surely did damage. And now Shadow Stalker is down with Khepri ult still up. Unfortunately, not going to be used. He is going to fall, and Yellow Jin will survive. But if you make that sacrifice to send your jungler over to left lane, there's got to be a kill, Bojo.
You better get the kill, and Joker doesn't even use the blink, and I think that would have helped him out a lot. He didn't necessarily have to look for a maximum rage ultimate. He simply can wait, but it doesn't quite have the patience. And Fire Giant being started up for Feeding Frenzy, it's going to be tough for the bishops to get in here. Yellow Jin's going to try, but I don't think he has much hope at this one.
He's looking at it, but Feeding Frenzy is actually just going to drop this fire. Bonsai Joe has gotten pretty low. And they're going to back off for a quick second here. Shock is going to take this opportunity to relapse on his Shock ultimate. That is a very short cooldown, and Yellow Jin is not a fan of that. However, Joker is now not a fan of this fight. He's going to ult out of here, and Shock's hammer is going to be used to chase him down. Zombie Killer is using the zoning tool here, but fire is still not being started up. We're seeing Feeding Frenzy not quite confident enough to take a look at this fire yet. Toxic Alpha is stalking in the little side jungle here now, taking a look here, maybe looking to place a ward, get some vision. They do know he's there now, as Jiggly Panda is going to take a look at him, and the dash is used a bit prematurely. Fire Giant still being started up here now. Joker coming in from the left side, and Kelva's going to head into the tower. This is a good juke now. Maybe a good opportunity to look for a steal as bishops are zoning in onto this Fire Giant. Joker in the back, Warlock in the again, the knock-up comes. Athena ult, and a pull from Khepri is now. Medusa's coming along. The fire is still alive here, and it's being picked up by the bishops. They are going to take it up now, as Joker is able to pick off Zombie in the back. He falls, but that is a totally worthwhile trade. Persephone ult comes out. Bonsai Joe is at half HP, and the pluck misses from Warlock, but Joe is just in the back line and inting there a little bit too far. Shadow Stalker. He picks up the kill. He just stalked Bonsai Joe, and he was able to pick it up, and bishops have won a game. Maybe.
Yeah, bishops may be coming back here. They grab the Fire Giant. I think Feeding Frenzy have a bit of work to do on their objective pull. Maybe when your opponent is going to come in and contest you, and especially when you're playing a mid laner that doesn't have secure. At that point, you just get off the objective and just take the fight here. But instead, decide not to do so. The bishops are gonna grab that T2 tower over there in solo lane. Warlock just taking a break, and yeah, the bishops, they're only down 1,500 gold now, which is nothing. So right now they can just even grab some towers. They honestly might even be happier just farming up their buffs and not doing anything, and they don't need to. they're not really that far behind anymore in this game, and it's a bit of a contrast to last game because at this point, Feeding Frenzy was, the game was basically over. But here, it's anybody's game, and it's exciting because I'd like to see what the bishops can do from a neutral position.
Yeah, I mean, Feeding Frenzy is still going to do a good job of managing this primal. They're going to take it away and limit the amount of gold that the bishops can take from this. Luckily, I believe our streamer Rosie was pointing out that Capri did secure a relic this time. It is unfortunately Ankh, and there's not much healing there besides the chalk sludge. But a relic is a relic, and that's a change of pace for this team.
Yeah, I mean, anything you pick up is going to be helpful for sure. And Ankh is still going to help out with the chalk quite a lot. I mean, the healing is pretty relevant here, and they're going to go for this T2 tower here, which they're going to get easily. Frenzy are going to give it up here, and they're quite split across the map here. I mean, Persephone splitting mid, Chalk is splitting over there in that solo lane, and bishops are all here on the left side. They could easily push a T2 here.
Yeah, I mean, pushing has to be the call here for bishops. They're kind of just scrambling around the map, and free towers are being given up by them. As Feeding Frenzy has in fact gained gold in the last few minutes with this Fire Giant on their side, which is not what you want to see. Although now looking at this T2, perhaps their second of the game in the middle lane, they have 5 and they are grouping up. Chalk is now backing, and the defense is not looking like it's here. Although Bonsai Joe is going to have something to say about this. He's going to use the pull, and Warlock will be the only one put in, but I think he's content to just stick there for a while and not need to move anywhere. I would have liked to see a beads from Warlock because it seems like he's being forced out of position a little bit too much here, Bojo.
Yeah, he's getting plucked pretty often, but yeah, really Warlock hasn't had the I don't really think he's used the blink very often either, so could have maybe looked for something else too. But I have to praise Feeding Frenzy here for some great macro. I mean, you saw the bishops all charging up that left side, but they split up and they grab a tower in mid and in solo lane, and that's why you see the gold lead actually in their favor because they split up very nicely. The bishops, I have to say, could have very easily taken that left T2 tower before heading into mid lane, and that would have helped equal things out a little bit. But they decide not to do so, and Feeding Frenzy is really making this Fire Giant seem not very impactful.
Yeah, the gold has literally risen for them since the Fire Giant, which is not what you want to see. I mean, there's not too long left on this Fire Giant anymore, so unfortunately the steal did not really do much in their favor. And with the 3 most impactful players on your team having this Fire Giant, you really needed to make something happen here.
Right, but at least they stall out, right? They stall out, they get a couple levels and some more items online, and now their fight is going to be that much better. I think Warlock also could have possibly grabbed a sovereignty. That would have helped a lot with the dodgy and the chalk dive, but right now we see some grouping here around this Fire Giant, but Cosmic is on the left side of the map.
Yeah, Cosmic is on the left and Chalk is backed. Bishops really need to start up a fight here, and Jin is just a little bit too skittish. He's just not going in, and the team is just too scared to make anything happen. And while this is the stance often of teams behind, you have to realize that the gap, the loophole, and when to just take your fights. Unfortunately, they did not at this moment, and now Feeding Frenzy's got 5 strong.
Yeah, everyone's grouped up here, so we're gonna see a proper 5v5 going on. It looks like Joker's gonna grab this mid wave, which is nice because you can sort of think of the wave as a mobile ward, so you'll know if anyone's in there. But big Chalk ult.
Yeah, Chalk's going to initiate here, and Daji coming in like they usually do with that quick 1-2 combo, the Chalk ult, Daji pull, and Warlock once again without beads, without an ultimate, and he's just without life here for the 7th time in this match. Zombie Killer will pick up the kill. That's the 3rd one for this Athena in this game, and the taunt on towards Joker is going to bring him down to half HP. He's going to use his kickflip, but he is chased down here by Bonsai Joe, who is actually going to get parried real quick by the up down. Ionic Joker picks up the kill. The Medusa stun is quite large as well for the imaginary bishops. This was a pretty good stifling of movement, but now they've got to really hustle and get back to this Fire Giant.
I mean, it looked like Feeding Frenzy was just going to run away with that team fight, but great heads up play there from Joker to up down his own ultimate and gets the trade. Actually, that's a huge pick because Bonsai is really the main problem here for the bishops. Fire Giant, though, is looking like it's going to be going down pretty quickly here. I don't think the bishops are going to get here in time.
Maybe it's a good secure here for the Feeding Frenzy.
There we go.
It's just too late for the bishops. and hopefully a pick here, Fallen Legend, will help them gain
Okay.
back a little bit of momentum, and that's just going to mean two members are not going to have this Fire Giant. Joe's not going to have it, and Fallen Legend is not going to have it. So I mean, you take those trades, and maybe even Zombie Killer here
Oh
is going to fall.
no.
The ultimate's going to come out. It's not going to matter. That's going to be a pick for Joker. And now only two members are going to have this Fire Giant, despite the visual glitch on the right side of your screen. Persephone will not have Fire Giant when she spawns, unless we found a new sort of glitch I don't know about. I believe it's just the end of her passive. And Pyro is going to be picked up here for the Bishops.
Yeah, the Bishops are holding on to this game. We're going to see at least another 5 minutes until this next Fire Giant comes up, which is going to be enhanced, by the way. It's going to be a bit more difficult for either team to take this down. But that's a great response from the Bishops. Yeah, you don't get to Fire Giant in time, but you can get to the Gods in time, and they grab a couple picks. Now they're going to grab this Gold Fury, unless Bonsai has something to say about it, as he's in the area.
Well, Bonsai always has something to say about it, but he's just not going to look at it here. He's going to use his blink to secure his safety. I would have liked to see some action from the Bishops, potentially going on that. Obviously, I don't know. You have your solo laner there. There's a blink up. It just would have been nice to see something.
Yeah, but you do get the dodgy blink down, which is a little bit of relief here for the backline of the Bishops, who are now going to push this T2 tower here on the left side. And they have to be a little careful here because they're actually separated pretty heavily here as a big Persephone else coming in.
It is coming in and is going to tangle up Warlock without beads. His team, unfortunately, has just left him for dead without autoing for him. And again, no ultimate. Unfortunately, he's just going to fall there. Alpha is going to use the ult, which is pre-beads by
beads.
Cosmic Feeder. Zombie Killer is going to take up the kill, and this could be the beginning of the end for Imaginary Bishops. Start playing Bleeding Love by Leona Lewis once more. Ionic Joker falls. Jiggly Panda will pick up that kill, and Yellow Jin gets a big stun. Unfortunately, it is for absolutely no one. He's going to need some Jin and maybe some tonic after this game. That is a quick taunt and a quick kill for Bonsai Joe. That is 12 for him and a near deicide for the Feeding Frenzy.
The Bishops have periods of time where they're looking really strong and playing as a group, and then you have times like that where, you know, we've got 3 players pushing a tower with your solo and your jungle, I believe, not even close, and they just get wrapped on by 5 players. I mean, that's just simple counting. I mean, 5 versus 3, 5 is bigger. Now they're going to lose their Phoenix in trade here and possibly the game.
Yeah, it looks like they're just going to play this safe and head for this T2 tower in mid, as Kepri really wanted that Bonsai Joe pick. But it's not going to happen. There's heal there for him from the Athena, who is just going to be able to really nicely save his jungler, and Warlock is just not able to get that farm in. Unfortunately, still level 16. But man, the Bishops have had a lot more life in the end part of this game than they did in the last one.
Yeah, they're a lot more even at this stage in the game, but they're just not grouping up as well as they could be, and the value that each player is getting from their kit is just not as high as their direct opponent. I think the Bishops here still are in a good spot. I mean, you can still fight for sure. I still really need Yellow Jin to engage, though. I haven't really seen it yet this game. And Joker, every time he does get to the back line, he's been able to find a couple picks onto Fallen Legend or even Cosmic. He's been able to do his job, but unless Yellow Jin is able to get in there, it's going to be impossible for Joker to get in and out without dying. And you can see now he's going to have to go over to duo lane and split these fire waves. But now, I mean, Shadow's just got nowhere to go.
Yeah, Shadow is once again without his beads, and it's just unfortunately costing right here without a Kepri ult being used to save him. And a good pick here. However, Bonsai Joe does fall as he's fallen in the last fight as well, and they're without their Uller here, who has not really been in many team fights. A good Persephone ult will zone away, as Jiggly Panda is still going to be able to caught in the clutches of the Kepri, and now Toxic Alpha is raining down autos. Warlock is quite low here, and Zombie Killer is looking towards Toxic Alpha. Joker has now joined the fight, and this is a good play for the Bishops. The up-down ult hits onto Zombie Killer. The stun hits now as well, and the taunt is going to be avoided very quickly from the Robin, but he's going to be able to get out now, this Athena, and waiting at the hammer is Ionic Joker with a very nice little one there. He's going to be able to collapse on towards that chalk, and that is 2 more picks for Bishops. And despite the Frenzy's doing well here, the Fire Giant is spawning, and while Ionic is going to ward off these minions, there's a potential shot here for a Fire Giant.
You have to say good timing by the Bishops, right? I mean, you see Shadow Stalkers respawning here, and they have all 5 members who can head over to this Fire Giant, as you mentioned, which is now spawning. EFG, by the way, very, very powerful if you're able to secure it. And
Yep.
now the bishops are going to head over, and this time Jiggly Panda is not going to be in this fight. He's still down for 30 or 25 seconds, excuse me. So he's not going to be
Uh-oh.
here for this. But the bishops aren't actually grouped up. They need to be a little bit careful here, as the Feeding Frenzy is here in force.
Yeah, Frenzy is literally outnumbering the players in the pit now. They are gonna deward this and just kind of put an end to that little pull they had there now. Still outnumbering the players as Jiggly Panda is yet to respawn. I'd like to see the Bishops with a fight here. The pull from Zombie Killer is going to start the fight, and Yellow Jin is going to look for a stun. But Feeding Frenzy playing passive as they should without their solo laner. Imaginary Bishops are going to take a lot of poke here, as that's a nice little 3 over the wall from the Uller. And start up the Fire Giant again. Bojo, I'm not sure I like this, as Khepri is literally getting set a pick on by the Pyromancer. He can't get in the pit now. And Toxic Alpha is tanking the Fire Giant. This is just a mess for the Bishops. Knocked up by the blazing freaking pools of lava, still brought low, and there's 5 members of Frenzy looking onto this.
Oh, no.
Alpha is tanking this Fire Giant and gonna use the ult to try to secure it. They get the Fire Giant, but this aftermath could be the peril here, as Yellow Jin is trapped. Toxic Alpha is gonna use a beads to survive. The ult to survive from Achilles. He's backing right in the way. Is Toxic Stalker's gonna fall. There is minions on the death's door, is Imaginary Bishops, as there's just fire minions all up and down. 2 members fall. That's a third now as Warlock falls, and they've secured the EFG, but the Titan's almost dead. Bonsai Joe picks up his third now, super low, as Yellow Jin will ward him away, but a full 5 here for Frenzy. EFG might not matter. This left Phoenix is now going to fall due to the duress of minions, and Yellow Jin is the only member alive to defend this Titan room. Bonsai Joe is 0 HP. He does not care. He knows this game is over, and so do Feeding Frenzy. That is a quick, well, I wouldn't say quick, but a solid 2-0 from Feeding Frenzy.
Solid 2-0. I mean, they really, had the pressure, and they kept it going throughout the game. It's sad because Imaginary Bishops, they have their moments. You can see it. They have moments where they grab their picks. They're on Fire Giant, and just a simple mistake, right? Like, again, like, don't 50-50 the objective. Just get off and fight, because if you don't, then this is what happens. You take 80% of your health bar to the Fire Giant. You only got 20 left, and Feeding Frenzy was coming back from base at 100%, and 100 is bigger than 20, people, and that's where the health bars went.
Yeah, I mean, the health bar disappeared, and you talked about it. There was just fleeting moments where it looked like it could have been for the Bishops. Like, they were so close in some ways. I mean, the unfortunate problem there was that there was just no Khepri revives to help save them in moments of peril, and they died multiple times during the game, about 30 of them, and there was just no real resolution to saving them. However, there was just so many times where it looked like it could have come their way.
Yeah, and credit to the Bishops. They came back game 2 and put on a show. They definitely were fighting back a little bit more. And when you're 36 minutes in and Fire Giant's being contested, I'm happy that they try and make a play. It just was not quite on the mark. I think Yellow Jin, like, you can see he's doing quite a lot of damage. I think he just really needs to get in there a little bit more. Joker does his job quite well. So if the fight just starts with Yellow Jin getting in there a little sooner, it'll help a lot. And you mentioned maybe the Khepri revives weren't on the mark. The relic usage really across the board could have been a bit better, but the Bishops had some fight there, and I think it's only pretty minor changes that need to be fixed here for the Bishops to be a force to be reckoned with. And I think they can honestly not be too upset about this game. As long as you're going from set to set and you're recognizing what went wrong and you can improve on it the next time, there's really nothing to be worried about, right? Like, let's reset, let's go into next week, let's get some scrims going, and yeah, I think the Bishops only need slight changes to really get online.
Yeah, for sure. It was a close one, and hopefully they don't hang their heads too low on the set. I mean, there was a lot of positives to the set. There was definitely some lane pressure and some leads that they had.
Right.
But they just couldn't find their ways in the mid to late game, and that's where Feeding Frenzy really took over in the late stages of the game. And unfortunate to them, but Feeding Frenzy are now going to pick up their second victory of the season, and this is a good direction to go with these wins. Bonsai Joe looked very good, and the team looked solid and compact, made some good decisions together, and definitely upwards from here.
Yeah, definitely upwards for sure. And I believe we're going to have an interview here with Bonsai Joe, but right before we do, we're just going to cut to a brief intermission here. So we'll be right back.
Welcome back from our brief intermission, and we are here with Bondi Joe of the Feeding Frenzy. Welcome.
Hey, how are you guys doing tonight?
Doing well. Cool, Joe. Well, I just have a couple questions for you here. Number one, I have to ask. It looks like teams banned this dodgy pick away from you for whatever reason. Although after this game, I think there's a pretty obvious reason. Is this a pick you're comfortable with and something you're going to be looking for in future?
No, Dodgy in the meta is a very, it's a counter pick, right? Like
Right.
it's tough to just kind of go into a game and say I want the Dodgy because you can run it. I really had to kind of pick it because it was good. I really liked it into the Merlin. I really liked it into the Medusa. Both of those two, I knew that I was confident in being able to, pull back into team fights, set up for my team. And it really did pay off. It felt really good. It has been something that I've been practicing in scrims, but it's definitely something that I'll be looking for in the future as well. Because man, that I said it when I joined the call here before the interview started, but that kit is a lot of fun to play. It is satisfying for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think you looked really, really great on it. And just a second question here for you. It
Yeah.
looked like you guys had a bit more difficulty in the game two here, or maybe your opponents were just playing a little better. But was there something that sort of changed in the team environment game two? Because it looked like it was you were popping off, no doubt about it. But I think the team as a collective had a bit more difficulty closing that one out.
I think that our communication as a whole was just a little bit better game one. We had better shot calls. We knew who we were attacking better. Game two, our targets were a little bit more scrambled, especially around the fire giant plays. We had some of us calling to drop. We had some of us calling to stay on, and that's definitely something that wasn't happening in game one. It's just a little bit more sloppy on our part, but it's something that we've been working on consistently in scrims to try to get better at. And
Sure.
I feel like if we get a little bit more consistent with those calls and really get to pick off who we want, it's definitely going to be better for us. And it really showed. We were a lot more together, especially in that end game. Our objective calls, while not the cleanest things on earth, were definitely better. We showed a lot more restraint when pushing towers and phoenixes, and I think that that's a lot of the reason why we were able to take game two in a very, very close matchup. And I do want to say that the enemy team also played great game two. Big shout outs to them. Um, Definitely were finding the advantages where they could, and were taking advantage when we were failing for sure.
Sure.
Before we leave you, first of all, congrats on the victory. And one last question for you. In the mind of a jungler, there's so many things going around as you're processing the map. But what was your thought process in this game? What were you focusing on doing, and how did it work out for you?
Yeah, in with Tsukiyomi in game one, it is a little bit more of I can find the ganks where I can, and I can initiate now. As the Daji, I am here to set up. I'm here to pick off. It's a little bit of a different mindset from game to game. I know.
Mhm.
Uh, Game two, the early first blood came out of mid lane. The Shadowstalker had a really great play using the void stance on Merlin to split us completely up in mid lane. I
Mhm.
went to the left, he went to Fallen went to the right, and they committed on that and got that first blood, and that was a fantastic play. Because early game Daji, I'm not really that useful until I hit the level 5. You
Right.
need the Powwow to be able to really do anything. So a little bit of a different mindset, but game two, it was definitely wait until that mid game, because I knew that mid game is exactly where I would find the majority of my kills, the majority of my advantages, and I think that definitely worked out. But it definitely came a little bit easier in game one. In game one, as the Tsukiyomi, I was able to initiate really easily, find a kill in the back line, and then I died, but you know the enemy team had wasted a lot to kill me, and
Right.
my teammates were
Yeah.
very easily able to clean up, and it was good. I always tell them, I was like, I will gladly go 12-12 if that means that you all go 12
Yeah.
and 0.
Hmm. Awesome.
Yeah. I mean, before we leave you, is there anything you'd like to say to anybody, the stream, anyone you want to shout out?
Shout out to my team. Fitty Frenzy has been through a lot of changes this season, a lot of different players, but I think that we found a really good group. We've been playing a lot together, and scrims have been good, matches have been good. And on the other team, I just wanted to give a shout out to Yellow Jin. He played great out of the solo lane. He's a good friend of mine, so he looked really really solid today, and he was a hard one to kill. He was definitely a hard one to gank there, and got me a couple times back. So GG's to everyone on both teams for sure.
All right,
Sweet.
well, congrats on the victory, and you guys can enjoy that on the hard fought 2-0. And yeah, that's going to be it for the interview, and that's also going to be it for the stream here of this SDL matchup. A nice 2-0 victory for Feeding Frenzy, and we will be back in just about 50 short minutes with the SDL or RSL stream of the next matchup here. So we will see you in just a short bit.
Ciao.
Peace.
Does manage to beat away.
That's gonna be doggy out.
There is one
Chains too.
That's gonna be our good.
He smells him out. And a good Kraken will steal the Oni Fury.
I don't think so. Popping on it.
He steals it with the national.
Steals it.
Kappa just.
Dookie's in trouble. The heart bomb.
He is in trouble, but good job there by Cowboy.
No!
He didn't do that. But Skipper
But he
trying
can't-
to go after it.
He can't run the auto. No tilting. You're all just pumped up, ready for game number 2. You're all talking to each other.
But this Phoenix under siege. Phoenix is at half. Jobek taken out. Section Cannon taken out by Turbog.
Haley, you still don't win that fight. No.
And that means I'm leaving this emoji up that Breezy played in game 1, which I thought looked really good. I think he pilots it very well.
Yeah, 2 halves. There you go. We got those 2 brain cells. We can talk about 2 different things now. Well, we working on.
And Zero Easy Does It is going to be focused on, and we're going to see a quadra kill.
And he looks like he's gonna go down. Haley did use the ult already?
No.
The impale! He's insane!
And now, one's going to be subject to the Rama ult, both on target. What a great snipe